You're telling me one bullet did all that? The alien officer squinted at the screen, watching the replay for the third time. A single shot had punched through a blast door, skipped across a steel beam, ricocheted under a transport, and shattered the pilot's helmet, mid-takeoff. The pilot was still slumped over the console, and the troop carrier was still smoking. The only thing they recovered from the distant ridge was an Earth-made bullet casing, nestled upright in the snow like it had been placed there on purpose. No signature, no thermal trail, no visible shooter. The Empire called it sabotage. Earth said nothing. But one man whispered the name that turned every head cold. Thorne. On board the Galactic dreadnought Crimson Lance, the tension in the war room broke with loud, arrogant laughter. A group of tall, armor-clad Imperial soldiers lounged across the gleaming benches, watching Earth's training footage on a floating holoscreen like it was a comedy reel. They zeroed in on a woman with a rough ponytail, covered in desert grime, laying prone in a makeshift range while humans around her shouted wind corrections and shot timings. She didn't speak. She just calmly fired, adjusted, fired again. She's twitchy, snorted Vroke, an officer with sunken gray skin and a ridge of golden implants across his forehead. Look at her shoulder flinch. No recoil control. Another soldier chimed in. Maybe that rifle's too heavy for her tiny arms. Even the instructor drone running the playback hesitated when Mara hit the 10-ring 4 times in a row at over 2 kilometers. Glitch, Broke said smugly. Earth software's still a joke. They dismissed her, Earth S-21, as a token. A quiet woman who happened to shoot decently on a primitive backwater planet where sandstorms and rifles still went hand in hand. The Empire's finest had learned to track moving asteroids with auto-aim systems that cost more than Earth's entire sniper program. To them, she was a rock with a scope. A small one. But halfway across the galaxy, Mara Thorne was adjusting windage by hand with a makeshift stick stuck in the ground. Her scope had no rangefinder. Her bipod leg was cracked. And she still put a bullet through the head of a moving droid sprinting across uneven terrain from 1.5 miles away. The dust barely cleared before her spotter shouted, "Hit!" in disbelief. She blinked, nodded once, then turned and packed up. She didn't wait for cheers or praise. Mara never did. Her teammates tried to hype the moment, but she was already 20 steps ahead, mentally unpacking the next shot. Her world was measured in wind speeds, bullet drops, and breathing patterns. Not medals. Not applause. The base commander watched from the observation tent and said to his aide, "She's ready." The aide, still new, frowned. "Ready for what, sir?" The commander didn't answer right away. He simply opened a drawer and pulled out a sealed envelope marked, "Read Proving Ground Varos." The name under, "Sniper Selection," was handwritten. And deliberate. While the Empire sipped expensive liquor and laughed over footage, Earth's military high command was quietly preparing Mara for something much bigger than a training exercise. She wasn't just a sniper. She was a message. And her presence in the war games was going to shake that floating smug dreadnought loose from its orbit of arrogance. Back on Crimson Lance, Vroke continued his comedy routine, rewinding the part of the training reel where Mara adjusted her scope with a gloved thumb, and then closed her eyes for a second before firing. She prayed to her bullet. He laughed. Maybe she thinks the bullet finds the target out of pity. The other soldiers erupted again, ignoring the data panel flashing. Accuracy 99.6%. Then the holoscreen changed. It was an encrypted feed. Not public footage. Not filtered highlights. Someone had breached into a classified record from a classified mission. The laughter died down when they saw the carnage. 3 transports destroyed. 1 command crawler flipped. A general dead. No witnesses. No trace of entry. The only clue was a static frame captured from a half-fried recon drone's last frame, blurred, but enough. A woman kneeling in the shadows on a ledge. Wind-blown scarf. Scoped rifle. Motionless. The AI system couldn't identify her, but it tagged her weapon as a modified long-barrel .338 Earth-built platform. The same one seen in Mara's training footage. Vroke stared. Quiet now. Something shifted in his posture. Because the last known image of that general had been sent to his wife only hours before he died, with a security detail the Empire considered untouchable. That same general had been preparing to annex Earth's southern hemisphere's spaceports in secret. And now he was gone. Without a trace. One of the younger soldiers in the room whispered, "That can't be her. That kind of shot." His voice trailed off as he replayed the footage, and the distance calculations calculated live on the screen. 2 kilometers. Wind at 20 knots. Nighttime. Elevation shift of 70 meters. The shot was impossible. But someone made it. And then, right there on the screen, as if Mara had planned it herself, a final frame blinked into view. A picture of the bullet casing. Polished. Earth-stamped. Balanced perfectly upright in a shallow crater of snow. Someone in the room shivered. Vroke growled and closed the file, pretending it didn't matter. He sneered. "Let her come. We'll let her take one shot. After that, she won't get a second chance." But deep down, they all knew. She wouldn't need one. Far away, inside a low-lit Earth barracks, Mara sat alone on her bunk, cleaning her rifle. A young recruit tried to strike up conversation. "Hey, you nervous about the proving ground match? You'll be up against the best." She didn't look up. "They should be nervous." The recruit laughed nervously. "You always this calm before a fight?" Mara finally looked at him. Not cold. Just still. "I don't fight," she said. "I end it." And just like that, she stood, shouldered her rifle, and stepped into the loading zone where Earth soldiers were being prepped for transport. The commander saluted her, and she returned it with a nod. No speech. No war cry. No hype. She didn't need any of it. Because the Empire was about to meet her. And they weren't going to laugh again. The icy winds of Varos licked at the armor plates of every arriving transport, howling through the jagged canyons like a living warning. As the Earth contingent disembarked from their rust-streaked drop shuttle, the difference between them and the Galactic Empire's delegation was blinding. The Empire's soldiers gleamed in chromatic exosuits, their rifles magnetically clipped to their backs, faces half hidden behind energy-filtering visors. They marched in formation like they were part of a weapons expo. By contrast, Earth's squad looked like a group of survivors from a forgotten battlefield. Their gear was worn, patched, and dusty, and their boots crunched with every uneven step. They didn't match. But they moved with an awareness that only came from having nothing but your instincts between you and death. Mara Thorne was the last one off the ship. She didn't move quickly, didn't make a show of her presence. She adjusted her sling, secured the bolt on her rifle, and walked quietly to the designated position, ignoring the stares, the cameras, and the sharp laughter echoing from the Imperial assembly lines. Several Empire officers didn't even hide their disdain. One of them, a lanky alien with multiple ocular implants, leaned over to Vroke and whispered loudly enough for nearby soldiers to hear, asking if Earth brought a mascot instead of a marksman. Mara heard it. She didn't flinch. Vroke himself stepped forward to offer a hand. His gesture was performative, more theater than respect. Mara looked at it, then nodded instead. He smirked, as if confirming his assumptions. "Sergeant Thorne, is it? Your file says you're accurate. Let's hope your reputation makes up for your equipment. Tell me, how's Earth's gravity treating your aim?" She said nothing. Her eyes met his, not with defiance but disinterest, like a woman who had measured 100 men like him and filed them all in the same mental drawer labeled noise. The silence stretched just long enough to make Vroke visibly uncomfortable. Then she turned and walked toward the base camp sniper tower. Later, during the open brief in the control chamber, the terms of the war games were laid out with dramatic flourish. A simulated conflict scenario. 2 factions. No support drones. No targeting assistance. No autolock satellites. Only what the soldiers carried. The Empire assumed it was a favor to themselves. They loved playing rough as long as it was still rigged. Most of them didn't even know that Earth had requested these conditions. The second the no-tech clause was read aloud, there were chuckles from half the room. An Empire sniper named Veshta, known for his 4-eye optics and 10 confirmed planetary surrenders, tilted his head and spoke in her direction. "We will not mock you for your optics, Earth woman. We will simply bury them with you." His entourage found this hilarious. Mara didn't even look up from her gear. The next morning was the practice round, a low-stakes shooting gallery designed for media footage and ego displays. Each sniper had to hit a sequence of moving targets at escalating distances, all under real Varos wind conditions. Earth went first. A tall man from South Africa took his position and scored moderately. A woman from Russia impressed the crowd with consistent hits. Then came Mara. She laid down slowly, carefully positioned her rifle, and didn't speak. The command drone hovered beside her, reading out the wind data like a broken translator. She shut it off. The crowd buzzed. She watched the pattern of snowflakes in the air, tilted her head slightly, and made the first shot. It hit dead center. So did the next. And the next. The final target was an anti-vehicle shell casing suspended midair by a drone at 2.5 kilometers. She exhaled once and pulled the trigger. A split second later, the casing spun, cracked down the middle, and dropped in 2 neat halves. The crowd gasped. The drone paused its recording, as if uncertain whether it had malfunctioned. Vroke blinked. Veshta sneered. "Fluke!" He stepped up next and made a show of adjusting his scope while barking out wind measurements like a professor. He struck most targets, and even clipped the final casing. But he didn't split it. Afterward, during the weapons inspection, the Empire's tech squad demanded to see her rifle. They scanned it for illegal enhancements. Found none. Just a meticulously maintained old-world platform with hand-etched sight markings. One technician shook his head and muttered, "It's impossible. That rifle shouldn't even be here." But it was. Inside the Earth tent, her squad mates gathered in quiet awe. A few tried to hype her up, joking that they should start calling her the Ghost or I Song. She told them not to. She didn't need a nickname. She already had a name that made people quiet when they heard it. While Mara was checking her ammunition, a comms tech approached her with a secure message from Earth Command. It was marked urgent but not spoken aloud. She read it, nodded, and burned it in the heater unit. Her commanding officer raised an eyebrow. She simply said, "They're sending someone." Empire sighed. "Someone I've shot before." The officer frowned. "They know it was you?" "Not yet," she replied. "But they will." That night, as a storm built over the ice fields, the Empire held a banquet inside their climate-controlled dome. Vroke and Veshta took center stage, mocking the practice drills and reciting embellished tales of past conquests. Vroke told a story about how he once shot a rebel off a flying beast while skiing backward. Someone brought up Mara's name. Veshta responded with a glass of neon liquor raised high and the words, "If she lands one shot during the games, I'll retire." That comment would come back to haunt him. Outside, Mara was lying alone in the snow, listening to the shifting winds. She wasn't sleeping. She was mapping the sound of the terrain, the pressure of the atmosphere, and the pattern of the storm. She wasn't waiting for war. She was already preparing to end it. The first gunshot wasn't supposed to be real. In the Proving Grounds official rules, all rounds used during the initial exercises were to be stun-based, meant to simulate combat without casualties. But the second shot punched through an Earth Scout's chest plate, ripping into his shoulder and sending him down in a spray of snow and blood. The Empire squad didn't flinch. They advanced steadily, their rifles humming with real ammunition, their breath steaming in the frozen air. The Earth soldiers scattered for cover, shouting in disbelief as simulated combat instantly turned lethal. Mara didn't move at first. She was perched high along a ledge of broken ice, her body buried beneath a ghillie cloak laced with Varos minerals to blend in with the environment. Her eyes tracked the hostile formation as it moved below her like a predator stalking a herd. 2 Earth soldiers fell in the first 60 seconds, hit with precise, cruel efficiency. There were no warnings. No hesitation. This wasn't an accident. This was a message from the Empire, A flex of power meant to show what happened when Earth dared to compete in a game they hadn't designed. Her spotter, hidden behind a jagged slab of glacier 15 meters from her, tried to radio base. Static. Jammed. His next instinct was to check on Mara. He didn't see her. She had already moved. The Empire's lead unit pushed further into the canyon, confident in their dominance. Their scanners weren't picking up resistance. They assumed Earth's team had gone fully defensive, retreating behind terrain and waiting to be picked off. The snow fell thicker now, dulling sound and obscuring sightlines. Their formation widened. A mistake. The first soldier to drop was a flank scout. No one heard the shot. He just stopped mid-step and crumpled forward, a thin line of red trailing from his visor. His teammates only noticed when his body rolled sideways down the ridge. They turned, scanned, found nothing. Then another shot cracked out, this one louder, and struck a comms officer in the spine. He folded backward into the snow, twitching. The Empire's soldiers yelled, alert now, barking in their native tongue. One of them screamed coordinates, and launched a flare into the sky. The light fizzled as it reached halfway and then shattered midair, intercepted by a tiny burst no one saw coming. Mara had moved to her second nest. She didn't pause. Her eyes tracked every movement with calculated precision, her breath slow and even. Her shots weren't fast, they were surgical. Every bullet had a purpose. Every angle was chosen for chain reaction. She didn't just eliminate targets. She destabilized entire flanks by removing command nodes, scouts, and sensor relays. Empire command in the observation bunker watched in confusion. The Empire team's vitals began blinking red on the board. At first they thought it was a system glitch. Then they watched one of their camera drones catch a frame of a soldier turning to shout, only for a puff of red mist to bloom from the side of his helmet before the feed cut out. There was no return fire. No visual of a shooter. Just an ever-shrinking squad growing more frantic by the minute. One of the Empire observers muttered, almost unconsciously, "It's her." Another officer frowned. "Impossible. The sensor grid doesn't even register her. No energy signature." The first observer responded quietly. "Exactly." In the field, Veshta barked orders, furious. He was flanked by 2 remaining sharpshooters and a drone operator. He slammed a command pad into the snow and activated a terrain-sweeping pulse. It emitted a low hum, designed to highlight motion across 6 kilometers. It showed nothing. His second-in-command opened his mouth to suggest retreat, but a second later, the back of his helmet exploded, and his words died with him. Veshta hit the ground instinctively, eyes scanning the cliffs. He knew. He finally understood what had been laughing at them this whole time. Not Earth. Not the humans. Her. She wasn't hiding. She was waiting. Her silence wasn't caution. It was calculation. Mara circled to the ridge's windward side, crossed a patch of jagged ice, and adjusted her angle. The Empire soldiers were bunching now. More predictable. She switched ammo types, sliding in a round designed to shatter on impact and ricochet within armor. She didn't even need a headshot. She only needed them close together. One more pull of the trigger. One Empire soldier fell. The bullet cracked inside his armor. He screamed and thrashed as his own kinetic shields activated and shorted out. The others tried to drag him back, but a second bullet dropped into the middle of the trio. Another fell. Veshta didn't try to help. He activated his emergency beacon. It blinked red, no signal. Static only. Far above, Mara caught the flare of light from the beacon. She smirked slightly. The Empire had come to humiliate. Now they were begging to be extracted. In the Earth Command tent, Mara's commanding officer finally received an encrypted satellite burst. The footage showed glimpses of Empire armor scattered like discarded toys in the snow, tracked from drones the Empire didn't know were still watching. One technician zoomed in on the ridgeline and caught a faint shimmer of motion. Mara's cloak. Just barely. Like a ghost. The room fell silent. One of the younger techs murmured, She's not hunting them. She's correcting them. Back in the canyon, Veshta had enough. He broke from the wrecked squad and ran toward a ravine. He moved fast, dodging blind, firing randomly at anything that looked like a ridge. His breathing was ragged, loud inside his helmet. Then it happened. He slipped. The snow beneath him gave out, and he landed hard on the lower slope. Silence. He groaned, turned over, and looked up. Mara was standing 10 meters away. Not hiding. Not aiming. Just standing. Her rifle was slung across her back. She didn't raise it. She just looked at him. He tried to speak. Couldn't. And then he realized the red dot blinking on his chest wasn't from her rifle. It was a remote mark. From the Empire's own drone. She had hacked their own tracking system and used it against them. One more blink. The mark activated the drone's kinetic core. It exploded mid-hover. The concussive wave knocked him unconscious. When he woke, Earth medics were hauling the remaining Empire wounded back to the staging tent. The war games were halted. He didn't speak. He just looked up at the sky, snowflakes drifting across his visor, and remembered the last thing he saw. She didn't fire. She didn't need to. She had already won. The moment the Empire realized they'd been outplayed, humiliated, and dismantled by a single Earth sniper, they stopped pretending the games were friendly. The proving ground was shut down within the hour, though no one said it aloud. Officially, the event was under investigation for protocol breaches. But everyone knew the truth. They hadn't just lost a simulated exercise. They had lost control, and the one person responsible hadn't even broken a sweat. Inside the Empire's mobile command center, a heavy silence weighed down the officers still stationed on Varos. Vroke paced behind his desk, watching the slow crawl of casualty reports on the main screen. His fingers twitched near his holster. He wasn't thinking about rules anymore. He wasn't thinking about footage or diplomacy or the fact that dozens of Empire soldiers were either in medical stasis or being airlifted out with shattered pride. He was thinking about vengeance. That's when the override signal came through. A secure line lit up with a deep pulse, the kind that came from high-priority channels that didn't ask permission. Commander Strahl appeared on the display. His face was older now, grizzled with lines etched by a dozen failed wars and decades of command. But it was his eyes that made Vroke stiffen. Cold, unreadable, and still harboring the faint burn of the day he was shot by an Earth-made bullet during a hostage operation no one had ever officially recorded. At the time, he thought it was a drone strike. Now he knew. He had reviewed the ballistics. The angle. The impossible precision. And then someone had shown him a zoomed-in photo of Mara Thorne's face. It wasn't just recognition. It was confirmation. He had been spared only because she hadn't aimed an inch lower. Strahl gave no greeting. He didn't need to. He simply said, "Prepare my arrival. This ends now." Hours later, his gunship arrived under the shroud of the next storm. No ceremony. No escorts. Just silence as he stepped out, his armor blackened from a dozen campaigns, his sidearm holstered in a ceremonial sheath that hadn't been drawn in years. He met with Vroke and reviewed the tactical footage from the canyon. As they stood before the projection of Mara taking her shot from behind a collapsing ridge, he finally spoke. "She doesn't miss," he said. Vroke tried to respond, but Strahl raised a hand to cut him off. "This isn't about her shot. This is about what it represents. Earth didn't come here to compete. They came to remind us that we are not invincible." Strahl made no threats. He didn't rant. He didn't bark orders. Instead, he requested a layout of all remaining Empire personnel on Varos. Then he began calculating. He pulled out a blank file and started sketching a heat map of predicted sniper nests, drawing arcs of fire, potential sight lines, weather patterns. He didn't speak again for an hour. When he finished, he looked up and said, "We move at dawn. Bring drones. But let them scout the wrong areas." By the time morning broke, the plan was in motion. Empire soldiers moved like a swarm across the valley, loud and proud, broadcasting radio static in every direction to draw attention. But Strahl wasn't with them. He took a small unit through a secondary ridge, hidden beneath rockfall and thermal cloaks. He didn't want to face her with firepower. He wanted to get close. See her. Understand the precision for himself. Meanwhile, Mara was already 2 ridges ahead, watching their distractions sweep uselessly across the wrong sector. She had been tracking the storm's movement and noticed the oddity before they even deployed. Their drones moved too perfectly, too linear. They wanted her to notice. She did. But she also noticed something else. A third signal. Quieter. More careful. She triangulated it in minutes. She wasn't surprised. She had expected him. Strahl. She remembered the mission. The hostage general. The diplomatic text held at knife point. The impossible shot she had taken from the window of a collapsing satellite silo, threading a bullet through 2 rotating fans and a glass panel. He had survived. Barely. He had no idea how close he had been to becoming a ghost that day. Now, he was walking into her sights again. She didn't pull the trigger. Not yet. Instead, she moved. Carefully. Deliberately. She wanted him to know. Strahl's lead scout spotted it first. A polished bullet casing planted in the snow. Upright. Perfectly balanced. He called it in, but Strahl already knew what it meant. He raised a hand. The squad stopped. He walked ahead slowly, through the frost, past the casing, and into the open field at the edge of the canyon. The wind howled around him. He raised both hands and spoke to the empty air. "I don't want a war," he said. "I want to see the person who ended one with a single bullet." No response. "I was arrogant," he continued. "I thought my armor made me immortal. That your silence meant fear. I know better now." Still nothing. Then, from behind a collapsed ice ridge, a voice answered. "You came to erase us. Now you want respect?" He turned slowly. She stood 10 meters away, rifle still slung, frost clinging to her cloak, hair pulled back like she hadn't moved in hours. "I came to understand," he said. Mara studied him, unmoved. "Understanding comes too late for most of your kind." Strahl nodded. "I know. That's why I'm not here to stop you. I'm here to see how many of my soldiers I failed." She didn't lower her rifle. But she didn't fire either. "Do they know," she asked, "that you left them out there as bait?" "They volunteered," he replied. She raised an eyebrow. "They didn't know why." He stepped forward. "Then tell me. Why do you fight like this? Silent. Alone." She didn't blink. "Because noise never won a war. Accuracy did." For a long moment, they stood in silence. Then she finally lowered the rifle. Not surrender. Not forgiveness. Just acknowledgement. He turned and walked away. Not a word exchanged further. No treaty. No apology. Just an understanding. She had given him his second pass. There wouldn't be a third. The news of the incident on Varos spread faster than the Empire could contain it. What was meant to be a staged show of dominance had spiraled into a legend whispered across star systems. Empire soldiers talked in hushed tones about the ghost in the snow. They didn't mention her by name. They didn't have to. They all knew who had done it. A sniper who moved like wind and struck like lightning. One who left no trace but precision and silence. Some called her a myth. Others swore they had seen the footage before it was classified and buried. No matter the version, the story ended the same way: she didn't miss. Back on Earth, Mara returned to base without ceremony. No medal waited for her. No parade. Just the usual check-in, gear inspection, and quiet nods from the few officers who understood what she had just dismantled. Her teammates stood a little straighter when she passed, not out of fear but out of something heavier. Respect born from survival. One of the younger soldiers approached her near the armory. He asked if the rumors were true. That she faced down an entire Empire unit, and walked away without using half her magazine. She shrugged, placed her rifle on the rack, and replied, "One shot per problem." The clip of her walking back from the final exercise had leaked despite Empire protocol. In it, she moves calmly through the aftermath of the field, passing down drones, scattered gear, and impact craters. She's not hurrying. Her face is unreadable. The wind cuts across her coat, and the snow swirls around her boots, but she never once looks behind her. That footage went viral within hours. It appeared on black market feeds, independent soldier networks, and was even whispered about in Imperial barracks under threat of punishment. The Empire tried to suppress it. They failed. The more they denied it happened, the more people wanted to know the name of the woman who made the Empire blink. On Varos, the cleanup was slow and uncomfortable. Empire officers gave stiff, hollow statements about system glitches and structural anomalies. But no one bought the official explanation. Especially not those who had survived it. Veshta, once the poster soldier for the Empire's sharpshooter division, quietly resigned. He didn't speak at his debrief. He didn't file a statement. He simply turned in his armor and disappeared. The last anyone saw of him, he was boarding a civilian freighter bound for the Outer Rim, eyes still twitching toward every snowbank like something was watching him. Vroke was reassigned. Not because he failed in combat, but because he failed to predict her. The High Command hated unpredictability more than defeat. They couldn't risk another incident like Mara. So they pretended she had never been there. They erased her name from the roster and deleted her assignment record from the war games entirely. As far as their database was concerned, Earth S-21 didn't exist. But the soldiers remembered. Every time a new recruit asked about sniper protocol, an older one would quietly mutter her name. Not loud. Just enough to make the room still. Earth's military didn't correct the myth. They let it grow. They didn't elevate her publicly. They didn't write up a profile or issue an award. They just let the silence do the work. Because silence was her signature. In the weeks that followed, a ripple spread across planetary defense forums and underground comms channels. Cadets requested transfers to Earth's sniper training division in record numbers. Some wanted to be like her. Most just wanted to understand how she did it. None of them came close. Mara never volunteered to teach. She simply returned to training grounds no one else used, practiced alone, and calibrated gear in silence. Every so often, a trainee would try to approach her, ask for pointers or tips. She never dismissed them. But she never gave them shortcuts either. She'd hand them a weather map and say one sentence. Figure it out. That was her way. One evening, during a late recon simulation, an Earth commander noticed a flare deployed incorrectly. They sent a small team to investigate, assuming it was a tech error. What they found instead was a message carved into a collapsed drone casing. No names. Just 5 words scratched with a knife. She doesn't miss her mark. No one claimed it. But the handwriting matched a field note from an old classified mission where a high-ranking general was saved by an impossible shot. The note had been unsigned. But the comparison was unmistakable. Somewhere deep in Empire territory, Commander Strahl reviewed footage from the Varos cleanup. His aides filtered out all identifying data. Still, he requested the original clip. The one where she walked away. He watched it again and again, not because he feared her, but because he understood what she represented. The Empire had grown fat with arrogance. It had stopped fearing skill and started relying on spectacle. Mara had ended all of that with one rifle, one cold breath, and no theatrics. He sat back in his chair, staring at the pause frame of her eyes beneath the frost. Not angry. Not vengeful. Just calm. Like gravity. He whispered to no one in particular. Let them mock her same again. Let them try. On the edge of a remote cliffside where no one trained and no drones patrolled, Mara sat alone beneath the stars. Her rifle lay disassembled beside her. Not broken. Just resting. She cleaned each piece with slow care, not because it needed it, but because it was the one ritual that still made sense in a galaxy that had forgotten patience. In the distance, the lights of a transport blinked across the sky. Probably an Empire patrol. She didn't reach for her scope. She just watched it pass. She didn't need to see it through a lens to know where it would land. She didn't need to track it. She already knew. Because once you had looked through the barrel long enough, you stopped seeing targets and started seeing patterns. Weaknesses. Moments. Paths of least resistance. And if you waited long enough, even the most powerful empires stepped right into your line of sight. She smiled faintly. No one saw it. No one needed to.